everyone. Okay, so in this session, we're going to be having a look at the events of the Spanish Armada. So we're going to have a look at a few of the key battles, what the plan was. It's quite a text-heavy one, this one. So I'm going to be talking through a text, but it's really good to practice your reading and to be able to sort of read things and put them in context. So if at any point you want to pause the video to have a read of it, it will be on your screen. I'll be annotating it as well. So feel free to pause it at any point to make sure that you're sort of understanding what we're talking about. So in this video, we're going to be having a look at the events, and in the next one, we're going to be having a look at the reasons why the Spanish didn't win. Okay, spoiler alert if you didn't know that. Okay, so let's get our text up then. Don't be frightened about how much of it there is. It's not actually that much when we talk through it. So let's have a see at what happened in the actual Armada itself. Okay, so we've got the actual invasion, the plan. So the plan is simple. The plan is for the Armada, which is the fleet of ships, to sail up the English Channel in order to meet up with the Spanish army in the Netherlands. Okay, so this army, numbering about 30,000 men, was under the command of the Duke of Parma. So they were going to sail. The thing about the Armada, the actual ships, is they were meant to pick men up. They weren't actually meant to fight. They were meant to pick these men up, bring them to England, plonk them down, and then they could go and fight. So once the troop had been picked up, the plan was for the ships to cross the Channel and capture ports on the south coast. So they were going to go into England and they were going to then take over on land. Okay, that's important for you to remember. The ships would land on the Kent coast and the soldiers would march to London. If things went as planned, victory would be assured. They would take over, they would replace Elizabeth. English Catholics would help them and they would force Elizabeth off the throne. So the plan's pretty good, right? At no point do they mention a sea battle. At no point do they say, we'll go and meet the English in the middle of the sea and we'll have a big battle there. The plan is that they go and meet this massive army, they take them all to London, they invade, and Bob's your uncle. It doesn't quite go to plan. So the Spanish Armada, the Spanish fleet, have 151 ships. So they've got 7,000 sailors and 34,000 soldiers. They've got 180 priests. You might be thinking, why would they take priests? It's just in case sailors die. They want to be able to know that they're sending them to heaven. And they've got monks and they deliver the Catholic Mass every day. So the commander, the person in charge, is the Duke of Medina Sidonia. Now, he has no maritime experience, which means that he is not a sailor. He's never commanded a ship. He doesn't know how to fight battles on the ocean. So that, again, is important for you to remember. They had enough supplies for 4 weeks, longer than they intended to be at sea. And the assumption was the Armada was going to face, was not going to face much opposition from the English. And so weapons on board were for the final land attack. All right, again, important for you to remember, they were never planning on fighting this battle at sea. So, I'm just going to skip this next bit and go straight to the launch of the Armada. So the Armada leaves Lisbon, which is in Portugal, in May 1588, but early events did not suggest that things would go well. So they ran into storms, they lost supplies, and they had to go back. Okay, so they set off and things go south straight away. They've got loads of damage, they've got things missing, they've got to go back and they're delayed. Now, they've already set off once. Now, obviously, that's not very sensible because the English might now know that they're coming and have time to prepare. Okay, so that's quite something that goes quite wrong for the Spanish quite early on. So they set sail again. This time, they enter the English Channel successfully in a defensive crescent formation. So if we just have a look at what that looks like, what that means is, they've got their ships in this kind of shape. So the ones, my ship's got lazy there, I'm sorry. The ones on the outside would have been the defensive ships. and the ones on the inside would have been the ones carrying the supplies. Okay. Okay, so the slower unarmed galleons, so the ones without any weapons, and the store ships were well protected in the middle, and the heavier armed ships sailing on the outside. So Philip's plan is to pick up the troops in the Netherlands, so they had to pass by the entire English coast. Given the size of the Armada, this could not go unnoticed, so the English would see them going, trying to pick up the troops in the Netherlands. They first spotted the Spanish on the 15th of July off Lizard Point in Cornwall. A chain of beacons had been constructed, so they knew, so they could let the people, the commanders, the Queen know in London that they were coming. And church bells rang out, so they sailed past and they were followed by the English fleet. Okay, so Medina Sidonia wants to establish a temporary base, and he wanted to wait for news from Parma and his army, but the English prevented this from happening. So 3 Spanish ships were lost, and what's important here is the Spanish didn't get to land. They didn't get to stay anywhere. They're still floating around, and the English are now chasing them. So this is turning into a sea battle. They expected just to be able to sail past, and this is now turning into a battle. So the English are about to strike. The English pushed the Armada towards a group of dangerous ledges and rocks. So what's important about this bit here is that the English know the waters. Okay, they can say, we want to inflict damage on the Spanish ships, so we're going to send them towards some dangerous rocks. So it forces the Spanish away from the coast and into the open sea. So they have to head for Calais without any word from Parma. So because they've been forced away, they have no soldiers. Okay, so remember, they were after those 30,000 soldiers. They now can't go and pick them up, which is very, very important. So as we've got here, the Armada was now in trouble. A key part of Philip's plan relied on close communication between Medina Sidonia and Parma, but this was impossible. Imagine trying to send a letter to the middle of the ocean. You've got no communication, nobody's got a phone, you can't text them, you can't WhatsApp them, you can't Snapchat them. You've got absolutely no way of knowing in the middle of the ocean where these people are to send a letter to. So it just isn't going to happen, okay? And that's something that Philip really, really didn't think about. So the Armada had anchored off the Dutch coast, ready to invade England. However, the Duke of Parma was not there because he didn't know. So he was tired of waiting for them, and he'd sent his troops away. Okay, so now we've got a battle called the Battle of Gravelines. So we've got the 2 fleets, the Spanish and the English, engage in combat. So the English now has the advantage. They've broken the Spanish crescent formation. So this shape that we drew earlier is now completely broken, and they don't have that defense anymore. And the Armada has had to sail into the wind. Okay, which means it's slower. The English are being pushed. They can find their way around. So the English ships were now at a tactical advantage because they fired constantly from a distance, causing huge amounts of damage, but not sinking any ships. And the Spanish were not prepared for a sea battle, remember, so they could barely defend themselves. The Spanish were poorly designed. Sorry, the Spanish guns were poorly designed, and they couldn't reload them fast enough. So really remember, they weren't ready for a sea battle, which we'll talk about again in more detail in the next video. So the English did not lose a single ship. It was a disaster for the Spanish. About 1,000 Spanish lives were lost. They lost 5 ships and many more were badly damaged. So when you think about the original plan and think about where they're up to now, it's really not looking good for the English. So we've got another event here that is called Tilbury. So it happened at Tilbury Docks, where Elizabeth visits the troops at horseback in armour. Now, this is very famous. You can, if you Google Elizabeth Tilbury speech, this it'll come up, where she gave this big presentation to try and ramp up the troops, which ironically she did after they'd already fought this battle. It was the location of a fort that had been built by Henry VIII, and it had been built to defend London from attack. And she goes and she say, now, do you know, this here, it says, Elizabeth declared that I have the body of a weak and feeble woman, but I have the heart and stomach of a king, and a king of England too. Now, that was my favourite line in history. I love this speech. I think it's brilliant. I've recently learned another historian called Lucy Worsley does brilliant programme on the Armada that's called British History's Biggest Fibs, and she does one on the Armada, and she actually says there's no evidence that Elizabeth ever said that. The first account of Elizabeth saying that was written 30 years after the event, which I find very disappointing, because I think it's absolutely brilliant. So whoever wrote that would have been great if she said it, but apparently she didn't. So she goes and gives a big speech. She wants to look like she's in charge of this victory. And then we've got the end of the Armada here. So the Armada scatters. They try to go back to Spain. They go round Scotland. So they've got polluted water, rotten food. They've got no maps. The English chased them, but it was the weather that finally destroyed the Armada. So the ships are battered by storms that blow them completely off course, because they don't know those areas as the English do. Gales and strong winds drove many of their ships onto rocks off the north and west coast of Ireland. Many ships were wrecked, and some of the survivors were actually slaughtered by the Scots, the Irish, and groups of English soldiers stationed in Ireland. So 151 ships set sail, only 65 returned safely to Spain, and around 20,000 Spaniards had been killed. So it was an epic military failure, a huge waste of human lives and resources, because they gained nothing. Philip is humiliated, and Elizabeth sees the encounter not only as a great victory, but evidence that God is on the side of Protestantism. So she sees it as a big religious victory for herself as well. So the English admirals receive medals with an inscription that says, God blew with his wind and they were scattered. Okay, so that's a very, 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 very quick overview of the Armada. Obviously, you can feel free to go back, pause this and reread it at any point you would like to. What I will do as well at the bottom in time for the next video, because I'm going to use this document again in the next video, is just pop a few links to some videos for you. So I'll put the link on there for Lucy Worsley's Biggest Fibs on the Armada, and I'll also put the link to the Tilbury speech and a Dan Snow video on the Armada as well, which is well worth watching. It's very, very interesting to see what the Spanish tried to do, and then how the English sort of got around it. And so in the next video, we'll have a look at the reasons, go through this again and pick out the reasons why the English won and the Spanish didn't. Okay, so hopefully that's been a good introduction, if it has been an introduction to you for the Armada. I would recommend going watching as many YouTube videos as you can about it, because there's some really, really good stuff out there. So as I said, feel free to go back, to pause this, and to read any of it in your own time. Okay, and I will see you in the next video, where we'll be picking out from this text the key reasons why the English won in the end and the Spanish lost. So thank you for joining me, and I will see you in the next video.